Welcome to the CBIA BizCast powered by Google. On this podcast, we dive into stories about Connecticut businesses.
Downs Construction actually came to my school.
And business leaders.
I think it's always also really important to be able to see a path forward
for shaping the future of Connecticut's economy. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amanda Marlowe, and today we are joined by the founder and CEO of SedMed, Jeremy Bronen. Jeremy, welcome to the BizCast.
Thanks for having me.
So for those people who haven't heard about SedMed, tell us, what is it?
So SedMed is a durable medical equipment company. So essentially we make toilet lifts to help older adults, people with disabilities get on and off the toilet and help caregivers honestly just be a little more efficient and reduce their strain and injury in health systems.
So when you kind of had your vision for the future, you said, I'm going to be the toilet guy.
I did not think I was going to be a toilet entrepreneur. From a young age, I loved making things and innovating, and that transpired into me, wanting to go to engineering school. So I went to UConn for mechanical engineering, and I know we'll dive into it in a little bit, but the rest is history in terms of how I got to being the toilet entrepreneur.
Well, I can kind of let you go down that road right now, and then we'll pivot from there. Tell us, so you were studying engineering, had made some friends who were entrepreneurs. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, to back it up even further, loved innovating, loved making things in my dad's workshop. So he's a physician, so he loves helping people, and then he also loves tinkering in his workshop. So I took that love, applied it to UConn Mechanical Engineering School. And along the way, just was enamored with new products. So I was always on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, buying the latest and greatest. Wasn't always the greatest, but it was definitely the latest. And then I started actually doing internships, so working for startups, and that really caught my interest pretty significantly. And then as a UConn mechanical engineer, every engineer has a capstone project, and so. Here comes my capstone project. A sponsor comes in, and long story short, he's living with this elderly woman named Grandma Grace, very close friends. When he was a broke college kid at UConn, she took him in. And so one day, though, she suffered from a stroke and became wheelchair bound and was struggling to get around the house. And, he sees this woman naked in the hands of a stranger, void of her independence and not void of a fall risk, even with somebody helping her. And the caregiver struggling. So he says, all right, I'm going to, sponsor a project, make a toilet lift. And so, I actually started this company with my sponsor as a senior design project, and then found out, wow, this is a much, much bigger problem than just this individual. And that's really how our origin started, is with helping people. So
really you saw that kind of tinkering with this project, that the market was really there for this. And with your somewhat healthcare background, your father working in healthcare, it kind of made sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more we dug into it too, like the first thing we did was, if you want to go down the path, the first thing we did was actually these UConn CCEI programs where we started winning pitch competition. And a big part of that was customer discovery. So just interviewing as many possible people. And the more we interviewed, the more we realized there was a massive problem at hand.
So when, in terms of a timeline, what year did you graduate, kind of take this project from a project to now becoming a real business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I graduated UConn May of 2020 and started doing some of these pitch competitions on the side during that time. I actually worked for another startup right out of college as a business development manager, and then just kept winning these pitch competitions, and then eventually, thought that what we had was good enough and had enough legs to start to raise some investment. So essentially, after about 6 months of working for another company, I said, why not do it myself and start the company? And so that's really how it originated. Pretty much 6 months after UConn, I was full-time on this.
What was it like really making that leap? Especially, in today's day and age where you hear a lot of startups, they really take off and then they kind of fall down. What gave you the courage to say, I'm going to do this and put everything I have into it?
Yeah. It was scary. I mean, because, I had a job. I could have gone to a corporate job, but I saw this opportunity, right? I saw the problem. The problem was so big, and I knew that a solution could solve this problem. And so sometimes finding the right problem, I think, is harder than finding the right solution, right? You can always iterate on the solution, but finding a right problem, and I think that I found that problem, I identified it with it, and I said, I can make a great company and help people. And, what better career is there than doing those two things?
You mentioned you always liked to tinker. You worked for a lot of startups. Did you feel that was where you were headed, or did you kind of want to stay straight engineering path?
No, I did not want to stay straight engineering path. I found that out very quickly. I was in a class that got extremely technical, and I said, I don't know if I'm right for this. But I stuck with the background, or I stuck with the degree. Kept at it, and really learned some amazing skills, and look at the world differently, and my problem solving and all that. But I had a buddy, Brian Triglione, who's one of my closest friends from UConn, and he's a real estate entrepreneur, and he got in my ear one day. I was always thinking about, how does this work, and what's this made out of, and what's the manufacturing? And then he said, how much does this place make? What are their expenses? And started really putting this thing in my brain of how does a business work? And that's when I realized I didn't want to just build a product. I wanted to build a company.
And let's talk a little bit about some of that, the investments that you got to help start this. I know that one of the pitch contests you mentioned, and one of the members that CBIA works with often, is the Forge pitch contest. Can you tell us a little bit about that and at what point you were introduced?
Yeah, actually, so Forge had caught my eye a while back because I wish I had Forge in my network when I first started this. I mean, I won't even go into there was serious pain going through finding somebody that could help produce a prototype or production units very early on. Lots of money spent, lots of time wasted for no results. And if Forge was there, I know I would have had it, down pat, great product, even probably less money. I mean, they're an amazing organization. And
it was kind of like a little bit of a Connecticut Shark Tank, right, so to speak?
This competition was that, yeah. So I actually reconnected with them at a UConn senior design event because we sponsor their projects, and we continue to kind of pay it forward. And so that's where I reconnected with them. And this was a product development pitch competition, right? So it was a way for startups to vie for grant funding in order to get to get some grant funding so you can do some product development and move forward. So it was pretty amazing for us, actually. That was really well needed funding. And I also reconnected with an investor at that event, and actually got significant investment as a result of that event.
Okay, and you, for those who don't know, you won that pitch contest.
Yes.
Received a significant amount of funding. You said also got another investor. Tell me a little bit more about the product. So a toilet lift, give us a little bit more background.
Yeah, absolutely. So our product is very simple, at least to the user, right? So it's a toilet lift that mounts onto any toilet via the 2 bolts in the back. We say 2 bolts in 2 minutes. Really simple, it's essentially a glorified toilet seat. And what it does is it slowly lowers users down, locks for safety, and when they're ready to get up, it lifts up to 80% of their body weight off the toilet. So it's really taking a lot of that effort and potential for a fall and just making it way easier and taking a lot of the burden off the individuals. No electricity, no motor, it's totally self-powered. Don't compromise on safety and happiness. Get a SedMed.
You came up with this product, obviously kind of, a joint partnership, but and I know you've talked a few times just about the impact that it has, but what makes you so emotionally connected to this product? Yeah, absolutely. And don't tell this to my investors, okay? But, getting the investment for the company of over $1 million or bringing on team members, getting production units, it's all really exciting, and it gets me happy. Same with getting revenue from customers, whatever. But I will never forget the first time
I got a phone call from the first person ever to use my product. And, I got chills down my entire body. She was on the phone with me, and basically the product was supposed to move around. It was supposed to go to different people. And she said, you guys are not taking this away from me. Like, this is a life changer. It's a life saver. It reduced the pain in my knees. I'm, unbelievably comfortable. I'm independent. I had pain. I don't have pain with this. Please, don't take this from me, is what she said. And, that lit more of a fire in me than anything previous. And it just is so rewarding to, build a company where we can get that type of a reaction and impact somebody's life that greatly. So, that is really what I live and push for. So
the need to survive and thrive, but really the impact is carrying you completely.
I think I am really struck by that passion and fire, yeah.
From there, I guess, where do we stand today?
Yeah, so a good amount has happened. We move quick. We're constantly working, but we move quick. So we, to this date, have, we just got our production units in. I should probably back up and say, so I as a part of my fundraising efforts, I actually cold reached out to a Connecticut serial entrepreneur. His name's Chris Allen, who's actually on the board of CBIA.
Yes, we're very familiar with Chris here.
And so, I saw, what he had done with his successes, and more I talked to him also with his failures and how much I could learn from both. And so I cold reached out to him and, was pestering him and finally got him to, take a meeting with me. And I was very scrappy. I demoed my product with a toilet and my toilet lift on the side of the road in West Hartford, to try to impress him and bring him on. And he's been amazing. He went from, an investor to an advisor to a board member to now I'm working with his manufacturer and his manufacturing team, as well as his COO, his CFO. I mean, it's been fantastic working with him. So
the trick is really just to get someone pulled over on the side of the road in West Hartford.
The scrappiness is the real lesson there, though. You got to be scrappy, I think.
And what was that like? I know we had talked, you had emailed him several times before you heard anything back.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at a certain point, the rejection, sometimes you wish you had rejection instead of not responding. But in entrepreneurship, it's like you got to just be comfortable with that, because there's an investor I had a relationship with that I emailed, called, and texted him 25 times before he wrote me a check. But he was happy to write the check. I just couldn't get a hold of him. So, it's challenging, but, with perseverance, you can get what you want, essentially. If they tell you no, then you got to back off. But if they're not telling you no, then I think it's okay to press for an answer, or at least a no.
Yeah, and that's been a significant help to your business, first as a mentor, but also to your business model, right?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. That perseverance and kind of tenaciousness is a necessity.
So going back to your story of, creation, so you've met Chris, you kind of got some help there. What happened next? Yeah, then we really started moving. So we closed our first fundraise of
$931,000. That's from primarily high net worth individuals, angel groups, and then even Connecticut Innovations, Connecticut's leading VC arm. And so that was pretty amazing. And most of that funding was actually applied directly to our production. So we scaled up from a few prototypes to full-blown, quality tested, manufacturing run of 225 production units that hit our warehouse in CT just a couple weeks ago. So, to go from concept to a filled out warehouse was amazing. Wow, that's pretty, it must feel good to really start to see all this work pay off. It does. It's hard sometimes in entrepreneurship because you're so focused on what's next in the future that you kind of give yourself a few seconds to go like, yes. And then you're like, all right, let's go. So, it really does feel amazing to see that and take a deep breath. But now I'm focused on let's clear it out. So from the product now that you have today,
to where you kind of started with your project, what's been the progression? One iteration, or have we seen a few?
Yeah. Well, it's a good segue. The first iteration of the product was 4 motors, clunky, scary a little bit, to a non-electric product. So our product requires no electricity, but is able to lift and lower people because it's powered by a gas spring. So same thing in an office chair, porch screen door, car trunk, and we've mechanically optimized that. But it really, our product iterations, the 9+ we have done, because we're always iterating and making it better, have really come from, the first one that was a concept to, something I hacked together in my dad's workshop, to getting a first prototype officially made by a contracted fabricator. And the rest of the iterations really came from us taking it, putting it in my trunk with a box or a literal toilet and just taking it around Connecticut and even the tri-state area and beyond, and taking it to key stakeholders to get their opinions, in the healthcare field about, I'm not in healthcare and I'm not a user, right? I'm not an older adult or a person with disabilities. So getting their input on the product was critical for iterating. So that's really what formed each version of this. And then we happened to meet Chris Allen along the way, who we were able to plug in with his manufacturing team. And that is really how we jumped from, 10 units of prototypes to a 50-unit pre-production unit run, and then 225 unit. And we're probably going to build our next large order very shortly as well.
Wow, so that's quite the progression in a pretty short amount of time, right? We're talking a couple years.
Yeah, all in, the concept of the company started in 2020, 2021. But the progression of, we'll say a functional prototype to a supply chain fully built was about 13 months, which is incredible.
And what do you think has been the biggest support to you in getting this started? Was it, coming out of the Innovation Center at UConn, working with different pitch contests? What do you think has been critical to your success?
Well, I'll say without Jen over at CCI and CCEI's programs and UConn IQ and Forge as well, we would not have been in existence. We were forged straight out of no pun intended, but the CCEI programs. That's where we were essentially birthed, and where I got my valuable lessons in business as a former, still-ish current engineer. So that's been absolutely critical to our success. And then I think the other thing has just been the team. So we have 3 employees full-time and 2 part-time. And at this point, everybody's smarter than me, and we would not be where we are today without the team we have behind us there, and then also our advisory board and mentors as well.
They're really kind of help keeping the process going and keeping you not up at night.
Yeah, well, I'm always up, even whether I'm excited or whatever. I'm up at night anyways, thinking about SedMed. But absolutely. And
what do you think has been in terms of from like the state of Connecticut and in terms of gaining access to capital? Has there been any support that you've received in that area?
Yes, yeah. So the big one was getting Connecticut Innovations as an investor in our company. That was amazing, and they're an amazing investor and organization far beyond the capital that they support us with. But CT Next was also pretty amazing and helpful for us. We won a number of pitch competitions through CT Next in a little bit of the valley of death time for a startup, and it also led to us bringing on an intern who just became full-time at the company a couple months ago.
And I know you had talked a little bit, about some of the people, some of your mentors, some of the other organizations that have really helped support you. What's one of the ways that you give back?
Yeah. A lot of people have helped me along the way. And in entrepreneurship, there's something amazing about, the pay it forward mentality. And so, I try to just continue to pay it forward. So I mentor students and, young startup companies as well. And actually, even today, I was up at UConn lecturing a class of senior design students, and telling them a little bit about entrepreneurship, and also that you can do a lot more with engineering or just the major that you major in college than what you think potentially. You can really expand out to what you might want to do. So I love the aspect of giving it back and paying it forward.
Great. So what's next for your company?
A good amount is next. So we just closed our latest raise of around $800,000. And so, I was full-time fundraising for a bit. Now I get to focus back on growth, which means, driving partnerships with health systems and distributors, which is really exciting, what I love to do. And then we'll look at, potentially bringing on a couple more team members and, allocating this inventory and building more. We have our largest ever order, and keep in mind we hit the market a couple quarters ago, but we have our largest ever order and install in a couple weeks here in a hospital where we're fully taking over a nursing unit with our product. So that'll be really exciting.
And your customer right now is hospitals, assisted living facilities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, primarily. And so like I said, our origin story was always like we're on a mission to help people. But the more we got into it, the more we realized our product, again, which is a toilet lift, is not only helping the users, but facilities really like it, health systems really like it, because it's protecting their staff from injury and therefore also potentially the workers' comp premium, backfilled work days, potential liabilities, and also even efficiencies as well. So we found just through customer discovery and listening to our customers that we had other value propositions that resonated pretty significantly.
And that customer discovery is something that you spent a lot of time on and continue to look at.
Definitely. Very important.
What ways did you go about doing that?
In the beginning, it was more formal. It was, hey, I'm a UConn student. This is my project. Just want to see if I can get your advice. And that was true. And, I used that for a while and was just getting advice. And now it's just asking questions, continuously asking questions to customers, whether, we're having a good experience and they're just like, yeah, we want more. It's like, great. Why do you want more? Like, tell us more about that and tell us, just start to drive down exactly what the benefits are and whatnot. And that discovery process has been really rewarding for us.
And what do you think, has been the biggest challenge from being that UConn student working on a project to business owner?
That's a really good question. It initially was just there's so much unknown, right? You go into any school and you come out into the real world and you're just like, whoa, what is this place? But going from engineering to figuring out my fundraising documents, raising money from investors, pitching investors, figuring out financial pro forma, all that was brand new to me. And I think that challenge is still there, and I continue to face it in every stage of the company. But being resourceful and bringing in people again that are smarter than me in all of these industry areas has been really impactful in the journey and making it a lot more easier, we'll say.
Is there anything that you think you could have received more support from, that, any regulations maybe that kind of held you up too much, or areas where you felt like in hindsight you could have been better supported?
Not a ton. I mean, the only two things I can think of off the top of my head are, one, the durable medical equipment reimbursement, state right now of the country is pretty messed up, I'll say. The thing that is deemed a necessity for a toileting product is a bedpan, which you can imagine what that's like in terms of the dignity of an individual to use a bedpan. So in addition to the clinical outcome that we're trying to achieve and potential ROI as well, the aspect of dignity by having a product like ours DME reimbursable is something that would be really impactful. So that's something we're going to pursue hard and heavy, absolutely. And then I think the only other thing was just timing, honestly, was the issue. I wish I had Forge in my back pocket earlier. But I'm really happy that they're around now. I'm really happy they're able to support young companies now.
Well, I think you are one of many startups that really has taken off, I would say, in the last couple of years, kind of post-pandemic. What would you say to other entrepreneurs who are maybe just getting started or in a similar position to you?
Yeah, I think the few things I would say are just, perseverance is key. Just do not stop. Do not stop. And, one of my good friends and also entrepreneur, very successful, Reed Waldman at Veradermics, told me, you're going to get to the point where you feel like you're at the end of the rope a lot of times, and just know there's always more rope. And, that quote sticks with me when I'm, making decisions and whatnot. And I think that's key. And the other one is, be confident in what you know, but humble in what you don't. Surround yourself with people that can make you smarter and do things better than you. The latest thing for me has been, I jumped from a one-man army to managing a team, and now I'm trusting and delegating things to people, and to the point where now I'm saying, I'm not even going to say my opinion because you're better than me at this. So bringing on people to support you is really important.
Awesome. Any, final thoughts for listeners or what we can expect? Hopefully some onshoring in the next decade or so.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think big things are coming from SedMed. We are charged up with excitement, and, our production inventory coming in has been really exciting, getting that out to the field. So you'll see a lot more of us. You can follow us on LinkedIn. Actually, we're pretty active there, and as am I. And absolutely want to make more in Connecticut. So that'll be an exciting update coming in the future, too.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being part of the BizCast, and thank you to our listeners for joining us for this week's BizCast. You can listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review and let us know if you have ideas for a future podcast. And for more episodes, head on over to CBIA.com.